You are listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network.
من هناك لشوارزنيجر
Ya lo hacen, pierna derecha, directo al arco, golazo, golazo, golazo.
This is Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio, your new live show about the beautiful game in all its glory, with Duane, Rollins and Kevin Laramee. MLS, EPL, La Liga, Champions League, all is fair game. Powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us at sportspodcastingnetwork.com.
And good day, good night, and welcome to Soccer Today. Kevin Laramee is solo today. Duane is on assignment. We talked a lot about this offseason of the Division II soccer situation in the United States with the USL and NASL and the both league vying for Division II, the NASL troubles, and now a relaunch of some sort of the NASL with new clubs, exciting action going on in some cities in the NASL. One of those cities is San Francisco. The Deltas have made some splash over the last few weeks with great signing. If you're a Canadian soccer fans, you're going to like the Deltas because they do have a few Canadian players in their roster. One of those Canadian players is defender Karl Ouimette, who took some time yesterday to talk to us, and you'll hear this interview in a few minutes. Karl Ouimette had a difficult few years with injuries. We all remember that incident that happened when he was playing for the Red Bulls too. We did not touch on the incident because, well, we all moved on from this. Cal had since 2012, he's been a pro with the Montreal Impact, and after a 3-year stint with the Impact, he was let go by the club. He's the first ever homegrown of the Montreal Impact. He played for the Red Bulls 2, and the Jacksonville Armada in the NASL. Now with the Deltas, it's a bit of a new beginning, and he's not the only one. Cal Becker, a journeyman of MLS over the last few years, played in Dallas, Toronto, and Montreal in the last 2 seasons. Now Cal Becker will be part of the San Francisco Deltas roster. Same for Nana Adekora and other players as well that were announced over the last few weeks. Mark Dos Santos is building a roster in San Francisco that could compete in the NASL very quickly. After his 1-year stint with Swope Park Rangers, the USL affiliate of the Kansas City, Sporting Kansas City, a great run this year too, with Mark Dos Santos deep in the playoff in the USL in his first year and only year with the Swope Park Rangers between his NASL coaching jobs of Ottawa in their first 2 seasons and now the Deltas starting this year. What really excites me is the level of players that the Deltas are getting. Proven players at an NASL level, like the Tom Heineman of this world. That signing that was announced yesterday as Cal Becker and the Brazilian player on loan from Fluminense. Again, we see Mark Dos Santos' connection in Brazil paying dividends. Will we see the new Rafael player that I used to love for Ottawa? We'll see another one of him. That's very interesting. But for San Francisco, with Mark Dos Santos and his network of contacts in Canadian, Brazilian soccer, and in the NASL, they are building a roster that could be very interesting in the first week for the spring season. And you know what? You get off to a hot start, you win that spring season, and you're in the postseason for the NASL Championship. And that is probably the goal of the Deltas. If they come out strong out of the gate, they have a chance to win that spring season. The roster is not finalized. The training camp has been open for a week now, but the Deltas are impressive. We'll talk later in the show after the interview about Dax McCarthy and the trade with the Fire. He finally spoke with the media in the first time in 3 weeks yesterday, and we'll touch on his comments. We'll talk about a few news. Freddie Adu, the Wonder Kid himself. Well, used to be Wonder Kid himself. We will talk about this, but first, let's go talk to Karl Ouimette, defender of the San Francisco Deltas.
You are listening to Soccer Today, live on SPN Radio. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
And we are joined today by Canadian international and first ever homegrown player for the Montreal Impact, Karl Ouimette, now playing for the San Francisco Deltas. First of all, Karl, how has the first week of training been?
It's been good. It's been really good. New faces, new coaching staff. Guys want to go on the field, give it everything, and there's been a good creation of links between the guys. People want to know each other, want to have them as teammates. So it's been a good bond.
You mentioned new faces, but a lot of familiar faces as well. Canadian internationals are joining to play for Deltas now with Cal Becker, Nana Adekora, and more. How is it important to have people that you actually know in this new project as well?
It's good. It's good just having some guys already played with, already know. It just make the transition easier. So having Nana, Kyle hasn't been here yet, but just having Nana around and a couple of faces. Stewart, the goalkeeper, I saw him when I was in New York down there. Played against a couple of guys as well, so it's good to have people I know around.
Mark Dos Santos, head coach, you find him once again. How important in your decision to join the Deltas was Mark Dos Santos at the head of this project?
It's good to have Mark as a coach. Is really good. Practice sessions have been awesome up till now, and Mark is the kind of coach that I know is going to make me better. So you always want that. You always want to get better, and I think Mark tactically is very good. So it's going to be able to help me and just progress, just put my level up.
So, Karl, when you're looking at your last few years, it wasn't necessarily easy, especially getting playing time. Do you feel the Deltas is a new beginning for you in your career?
Yeah, I mean, each year is a new beginning. Sports world is pretty rough. You always have to fight for a position. So, yeah, I've been coming here in the mentality to win the spot and be able to get some playing time. That was part of the decision to come to San Francisco as well. Get some minutes in because that's important as a player. I mean, besides last year in MLS, I've been able to get a couple of their games here and there, but I want to establish myself and be able to start on a consistent basis for a full season. So that's going to be important this year as well.
Over the last few weeks, there was some controversies in the United States with the Division II status of both league of the NASL and USL. Did it ever cross your mind, or was it something that really was interesting for you in the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, at one point we didn't know what it was going to be, if NASL was going to be a league again or no. So for sure it was a concern at one point in terms of if I was going to come here or not, because I wasn't sure. But once everything got settled in, and we knew NASL was going to be a league going forward, there was no doubt in my mind I was coming here. So yeah, that played a good part.
Being the first ever homegrown player for the Montreal Impact when they first started in 2012 in Major League Soccer, Karl, did you feel that it brought maybe in undue pressure or a magnifying glass on your play at that instant? And the academy that existed for a few years wasn't at the level that it is today. Do you feel like you were giving a fair chance at that time?
For sure, when I signed, it was always unknown territory. Nobody had done this before, so I was a bit paving the way for the other guys to come in to know how it will work. So for sure, I was always experiencing new stuff, and nobody had done it before, so it was challenging. But I got my fair chance for sure, and just being able to sign there was a huge honor to be able to sign my own city. So I was just giving everything and taking the experience from the guys that were down there. So that was a good experience for me.
You were in camp a few weeks ago with the Canadian men's national team. How important and how much of a goal is it for you, Karl, to represent your country in the upcoming Gold Cup?
it's always an honor to go with Canada and represent my country. So for sure, that goes in link with the playing time I have here as well. So the more playing time I have with my club, the better chances I have to play in the Gold Cup. So I just want to keep working hard, keep progressing, and be able to win a spot to play in the Gold Cup.
Speaking of the national team, there's a lot of rumblings. Speaking of the World Cup in 2026, there's potential. There's maybe a bid from Canada, from the United States, or a joint bid. Is it for you something that would be maybe even a dream that you never even dreamed of playing for your country at home in the World Cup?
Yeah, that would be awesome. For sure, that's in the wild for sure. Before looking at 2026, we're going to look at 2022 for sure, and try to get at the World Cup at that point. So it's for sure, World Cup is a goal every soccer player wants to achieve, and if we could be part of that, that would be awesome. But there's still a long road to go, and the national team is doing things better than has done before, and just look forward and try to get opportunities to get better, and to be able to give us a chance to go there.
Karl Ouimette, good luck with the San Francisco Deltas, and we cannot wait to watch you on the pitch this season.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
You are listening to SPN Radio, powered by the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit sportspodcastingnetwork.com for more.
Thanks to Karl Ouimette and the San Francisco Deltas for the interview. We talked about before the interviews the 4 players signed by the Deltas over the last few days. We talked about Cal Becker, a Canadian national midfielder. Tom Heineman, former Columbus Crew and Rowdies, and he had a lot of success in the NASL. A former DePaul defender, Patrick Hopkins, signed for 2017 season, and Pablo Diego, the Brazilian player from Fluminense, joins the Delta on loan. So the roster is starting to shape up. The coaching staff are starting to get to know each other. Everybody's getting to know the training ground, getting to know the city. It's a lot to take in. And let me tell you, the only time I appeared in the Bay Area, it's a lot to take in. The vastness, it's imposing. And just the city sprawled across the rolling hills. It's quite impressive. And the training ground not necessarily being the most extensive and the most they're loaning. It's a club that's beginning, it's taking shape, but the setting, though, the view and the background of the Bay Area, that is quite impressive. I have to say, after watching a few videos of the training of the Deltas, yeah, their first training ground is quite impressive to be, and it probably brings something to the club. I wish I was a little fly sometimes so I could attend training sessions like that particular one. Speaking of training session and training stints and trials, we had a player on trial for the Portland Timbers over the last 2 weeks. Freddie Adu, better known as the American Pele, in 2004 at 14 years old. He was drafted first overall in MLS. It never panned out to be. It never happened. Freddie Adu had multiple stints across the world, across North America, lately in the NASL last year with the Rowdies, if I'm not mistaken. But this time around, he was trying to get a roster spot and make good impression in Portland. And on Monday, he was not back in Portland with the team. He was not training with the team. He trained for them 2 weeks in Arizona, but he did not return with the club to Portland on Sunday. So Freddie Adu's trial with the Portland Timbers has come to an abrupt end. And speaking of training camp again, the MLS preseason in Tucson, Arizona, of teams like Portland and others are bringing some economic boost to the city. A little bit of fans that are traveling to go there, the amount of hotels booked because of the teams. A lot of baseball training camps are going to start there very soon as well. But the MLS is now having a type of training camp, not as extensive as major baseball, but a training camp in the South. You see this in Florida and Tampa Bay with the Suncoast Invitational Tournament. You see it in Arizona now. Teams teams comes into the same county, reserve hotel rooms, go to the restaurant, have team bonding activities. It brings an economic boost to those cities, and it's something to keep an eye on. I do feel Major League Soccer's reputation as a team and as a league, and to be eventually considered one of those top four American, or maybe it's going to become the Big Five now, the Big Five Major League sports eventually. Those are the type of quote unquote proof, evidence that a league is growing. When a league goes into a training camp for a city, in a smaller city, and brings money, brings economic growth, brings an impact to that city, well, that is quite useful. When you go back to sponsors, when you go back to investors and future just collaborators of the league, the perception of it makes a lot of sense. And it's quite again, get your bingo cards out. It's quite interesting. Howard Webb to manage video assistant referee operations for Pro. It was announced yesterday that the 25-year-long career referee in the Premier League, Howard Webb, which retired a year and a half or 2 years ago, or a year ago, retired not too long ago as an active referee, will be heading the video assistant referee operations for Pro. So we will see a lot more of Howard Webb in MLS because he will oversee the implementation of video technology in the refereeing in MLS, which will start this year. You can go to 442.com, an article by Paul Tenorio, friend of the show. You can read the article that was published yesterday that talks about Webb's plan and what Webb's job will be with Pro as the overseer, the Grand Master of the video technology for a refereeing, better known as video assistant refereeing, which will be implemented in MLS starting this season. Dax McCarthy has spoken to the media for the first time in 3 weeks after getting married and traded 2 days later while he was in his first U.S. men's national team training camp in years. Dax McCarthy has not taken fondly of the way this trade has gone down. Dax McCarthy, a legend, a cult hero for the New York Rebels, was traded to the Chicago Fire for $400,000 of allocation money. Dax McCarthy was not expecting it. The way it happened for him, where it happened in his life, what he was doing, and not necessarily the communications and the talks together before the trade, and not necessarily getting notified before it all goes viral. He didn't appreciate that. He didn't think it was done the most professionally, and he thinks that there was better ways to do so. You can read the article on MLSsoccer.com, and you can find the audio on YouTube and other places of that teleconference that Dax McCarthy had with the journalists yesterday. We talked at the time 3 weeks ago when that happened that, well, go from one of the top club to the bottom club. Dax McCarthy was, it's a big hit on your salary cap when you want to give more space and playing time to your academy players. You look at what you can free up on the cap at the same time to create value out of those homegrown and academy players. And Dax McCarthy was their choice. Like, he's expendable to us. We can do without him. We think we have the depth necessary from the products of our academy heading into 2017 that we can fill in for Dax McCarthy. So Jesse Marsh and the higher-ups of the New York Rebels have pulled the trigger, $400,000 of allocation money for the Chicago Fire, and they decided it was enough. But the way they treated that situation with Dax McCarthy himself left Dax sour. And that's what we heard yesterday. He took some time to think about how he would approach that day because like he mentioned, quote, "It's an organization that I love, but I thought it was not done in an appropriate way, especially for a club and a team that preaches family," he said. "This is a team that preaches togetherness and brotherhood and having each other's back. Trust is a big word that they use, and he feels the way that trade happened, that the trust, that togetherness, and that brotherhood was broken." And it's always a sour feeling when you have a bond like this that you think is going to last for a long time and you're not expecting it to break, and that bond is shattered without your consent or your agreement first, it does leave a sour taste in your mouth. Good luck to Dax McCarthy with the Chicago Fire. And good luck with the Rebels without Dax McCarthy. When we're looking at training camp and the off season, and there's a few games coming, the real big preseason game starts next week when we have the Suncoast Invitational Tournament hosted by the Tampa Bay Rowdies at Al Lang Stadium, which, by the way, to continue on the hashtag MLS to St. Pete, the Rowdies are having another campaign in the Tampa St. Pete area to prove to MLS that, look, we will pack Al Lang for every preseason game we have, just to show you that we want to be one of those first two teams. And once again, my top two favorites for their first round of this expansion round that it won't be announced for another few, probably months. I do feel it's Tampa and Detroit. Detroit is a dark horse. Don't forget Detroit. Don't sleep on that bid. The ramification of what that bid could do. Yes, on the short term, even if it's not a bid that has its full potential in the short term because of the build of the stadium and that area of the city that will revitalize, takes some time to construct and to build. I get that. You play Ford Field in the meantime for 1 or 2 seasons, but the financial advantage of having a team in Detroit, of having a team that will literally bring new life to that city that desperately needs it. It's not as bad as it was 5 to 10 years ago, but still, it will be a kickstart. And again, don't sleep on Detroit. But starting next week for Tampa Bay, there is the Suncoast Invitational Tournament. The Montreal Impact plays their first game on Wednesday, February 15th against the Chicago Fire and Dax McCarthy. So we'll see Dax there. That will be interesting. But that's when it gets serious. Because in a month, less than a month from now, the MLS season will be started. You will be watching your team. You will be already talking with your friends, assisting, supporting, enjoying, crying, being allocated. You will go through all those emotions in not even a month. So now when you're looking at your team, you're not sure of your roster, still a lot of things to happen. There's still a lot of decision to see. And we will start to take a look, probably starting tomorrow, of which team we feel got better. Which team, maybe by just doing nothing, got worse or got better. Who knows? A lot of roster are still being molded at the instant. There's still trialists here and there. There's still people trying to get to their contact. Or what we have seen this offseason is Atlanta's making a big splash. Minnesota's trying to. But the new clubs are trying to go for it. And the old established club are really gambling or maybe relying themselves on continuity, on the same core of players growing together, having another chance. Or sometimes it's a guy back from injury that changes everything. Andres Romero going full clip with the Montreal Impact in training camp right now. This is a great news for any Montreal Impact fan. When you have Andres Romero, that right midfielder that was desperately missing for the Montreal Impact, especially in the Eastern Conference final last year, Montreal-Toronto, he was the player missing, in my opinion, between the win and the loss in those two games. And that's what you bring another option. Yes, Dominic Oduro had a lot of success last season, especially late and in the playoff at that spot. But when you have two, you have that competition factor. Dominic Oduro had a tough stint in the middle part of last season. And if Romero would have been there, maybe Montreal would have had a home field advantage. It's that close sometimes. It's 3 points. And a player like Romero will give you at least 3 points in a season, if not 6. And no, we're not being delusional. We're just going with history. If you're just going to Romero's body of work in Major League Soccer and the Montreal Impact, when he was fully healthy, he was a key piece of the success of that club. And now where the club is, I think, is return from injury with players like Donadel, Bernadello, Bernier, Piatti, Mancosu, at least until June, and in June, July, Berem Zemali, which will be a game changer. Have you watched Bologna lately? Zemali's on fire. Zemali will burn turf in North America when he comes over. He will have a bigger impact than Inacho Piatti had with this club just because of his body of work. The one thing that we have noticed over the last few years, seeing more and more player coming over from Serie A and Serie B in Italy, is the correlation between the play in Italy and Major League Soccer is very similar. The way calcio is played tends to create players that evolve and adapt very well in Major League Soccer. And I am not surprised, and I will not be surprised if Zemali comes in and just burns the league to the ground. Just goes out and all pulls out a bigger first 6 months than Drogba, than Devayo, or than Piatti. That's the impact that I feel a Zemali will bring to the Montreal Impact, no pun intended, in July. But before that, Montreal decided to use consistency. And to be quite honest, I think it's the key to success. If you're looking at Major League Soccer's team that have created success last season, Dallas, New York, consistency was there. Even teams like Portland that came out of nowhere and won, if you're looking at the core of that team, they had been together for a few years. And it's a project that was, adapted along the way. Caleb Porter adapted the way he was managing this team, especially in the 2015 season, during the middle of that season. But still, it's a project that he started with those core players and that evolved to be a successful one after consistency and patience. And that is what I think we're seeing from a lot of the clubs heading into the 2017 season in Major League Soccer. You can follow me on Twitter at Kev Laramee, and you can follow this show as well at Soccer Today SPN. Stay tuned to the Sports Podcasting Network for a brand new Scuderia F1 that just came out yesterday, the 3 drivers to watch in 2017, and Hardwood Radio, where we talk about all the drama that has been going on in New York, Chicago, and especially Cleveland, especially LeBron versus Barkley. But until tomorrow, 10 a.m., well, have a great soccer. You were listening to SPN, the Sports Podcasting Network. Visit us, sportspodcastingnetwork.com.